All right, welcome back, car guys and car gals, to another Retain and Gain, episode 2. And here
we made
go.
it to episode 2.
I'm Larry Bruce.
I'm Rob Mudd.
And we're going to talk about CDPs.
What is a CDP?
What does it do really? And it used to be called relational marketing database. It was called before that an up list back in the day. It's funny how all these names for the same thing keep coming up, and we still don't have one.
And let's define what CDP means.
Right.
Customer data platform.
Yeah,
right?
Customer data platform is what that's. But what the new fancy name you might have heard. My personal favorite that gets used a lot is the data lake house. If I'm going to have a data lake, I'm going to have a data lake house.
Yeah, in a boat.
And a boat. Hell yeah. I mean, what the hell are we doing? But so data lake house, data lake. Customer data platform, relational marketing database, customer list, whatever you want to call it. We gave up on this in the mid-2000s.
Why?
That's a good question. That's another one of those mysteries that I really want to someday solve.
Well, I think that product, the CDP, helps the dealer. A CDP is the antithesis of digital marketing.
Maybe.
Because you need first-party data.
Yeah, I mean, we call it first-party data. That then was called customer lists. I mean, but at the end of the day, the CDP or the customer data platform or the customer list, or I think that somebody thought CRM was going to do this. Maybe. I know that back in the day, Reynolds sold CM as a marketing list, something that marketing could use. And that didn't work out very well. So CRM doesn't do it.
Correct.
DMS doesn't do it.
Correct.
Right. And my good friend Todd Smith asked a very good question. Why do we need another data silo in another system?
Because the other silos they did on purpose that don't talk to one another.
Right.
So now you need a new one that unifies it all.
Yeah, I think the customer data platform. The first tactic that I would definitely say we need to add into this show is that the customer data platform is what everything you do from that point forward gets built on top of or has access to. So that is where my CRM gets its data if I'm using a CRM even at that point. We'll talk about why that's dead here in a little bit. It's where my marketing companies are getting their quote unquote audiences from. It's where anyone who's wanting to use any de-anonymization data from my website, it's where you're getting that data from. You don't have pixels on my website anymore. You don't have
stop right there, because I think that's a big problem that dealers today aren't aware of, is that any pixel that you have on your website that you thought you stopped paying for that service, they didn't take off the pixel.
Right.
And they are stealing your ad dollar.
They're stealing your
traffic.
They're stealing your traffic, your customers. They are your customers. When you paid the money to get that guy to come to your website, and you paid the money to do it, even if you just bought the website, you still paid the money to get somebody to come there. When that happened and they took it and reversed into it and took the customer, they took your customer.
How do you think, ask yourself this, Mr. Dealer, Mr. General Manager, how is it that all of a sudden we have a new metric called in-market shoppers?
Because they came from you. Yeah.
Right? They came to you, your website.
Came from your website, right.
But the guy that's got the pixel on it has the pixel on yours and 30,000 other guys.
Places and all this other nonsense. I mean, that I would tell you. So let me back this up. Here, first tactic to take from this, go get a pixel checking browser extension. Ghostery is the one I use. There's lots of them. We'll put a link to the Ghostery in the show notes.
That's really important.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Get one, and then any pixel or script running on your site you don't recognize, get it off.
Yep.
And realistically, I can tell you this. The only scripts that run on Amazon's websites are Amazon scripts.
Right.
The only ones that run on Apple's websites are Apple's scripts. The only ones that are running on your website should be yours.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
And that's because that's your data, and when it should get into your CDP. And then your CDP will give it to who you want to give it to. Too many times I think the biggest problem with CDP, and that goes back to what I was having this discussion with Todd about, is that the CDP was started and is used as a customer contact area to create this audience for these guys that use that term, right? And so they're using it to create these audiences, and then they're marketing to them online. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It 100% makes sense to do it.
Yep.
The problem is that they got your CDP. Right. And and they're using it just for that. And realistically, that's not what a CDP is, and that's not what it was built for. So let me explain what I think is a CDP, right? A CDP is all my customer data that comes from my DMS, my core foundational transactions, people that do business with me. We call those existing customers, right?
Yep.
And then it comes from my CRM, all of everybody I've talked to anyone who raised their hand and said, I might want to do business with you that didn't. We call those potential customers.
Yep.
And then everybody I reach out to who doesn't know anything about me, never been anywhere around me, we call those conquest customers.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And then anybody who's touched my website, that I can reverse or de-anonymize and put it as a list, they're part of my CDP. Then my inventory is a part of my CDP.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then everybody that I take that is an up, who comes on my lot, who walks into my store, that's a part of my CDP.
Yep.
So your CDP is made up of these 6 areas of data. Back in when we first started AIM Data back in 1999, everybody could argue whether or not that was the first CDP. There are some people that say it is. I don't care. I mean, ultimately, the relational marketing database that AIM Data built is a foundation for every company I've ever built.
Well, and the CDP is a concept.
Right.
It represents a theory of what you need to do, and it's collect all the people that you've ever had an interaction with some way, somehow.
Manage them and talk to them.
And talk to them again.
Right. That's exactly right. At the end of the day, it is that kind of it's that concept, and that concept's
another
not
management tool,
right?
It's another management tool that's been brought out and put a nice term on it because they've already done the CRM, they've already done the DMS. What's the next thing? Well, what about a tool that categorizes all those things? Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, so if your DMS really can't be your CDP,
no.
It's transactional in nature.
Yes.
Right? And your CRM can't be your CDP and hasn't been built to be your CDP because it doesn't household any records. It doesn't. No CRM does. I don't know a single one that does.
When you explain that, what you mean by that household?
But realistically, your CDP is centered around the household. Right.
I'm talking about the listeners when they hear that.
So when you hear it householding, that is, I've got an address, 123 Main Street, and 123 Main Street has 3 people that live at it.
Yep.
Bob, Jim, and Joe, their kid, and there are 3 vehicles that also live at that address, 3 VINs, right? And they all are connected to that household. And if you're going to have a CDP and it's not householded, that's a problem because you're going to have a problem with unification.
Right. With
data unification. You're not going to get good data unification without householding first.
So I gave a seminar years back on the importance of zip codes, right? Mm-hmm. I know that may sound weird that I'm saying that, but the reality is it's real, right? Because nothing in this United States moves without a zip code.
Nope.
And no house lives in a neighborhood without a zip code, right? And so that zip code represents anywhere from 25 to 30,000 people usually on zip codes, right? So you have to have a product that can get you to the zip code level to know what your audience could possibly be, right? And
that's where everything starts. That the zip code is the place where you're going to get your quote unquote PMA.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And your PMA, so we're gonna supplement one tactic, because I was going to give another one, but I'm going to do this one first, and then we'll give the next one. This tactic, your PMA is not what your manufacturer says it is. Manufacturers' PMAs are drawn up based on your proximity to other stores. Your customers,
7 miles by the crow.
Your customers don't care how close you are to another store. They don't. What your PMA is where 80% of your business comes from by zip code. That is a metric. Please, there are 5 W's that you have to have for marketing. That's the first one. It's the where. Where do I sell? And you find that out by having this is what you mean by data driven. Let my customers tell me where I sell. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter where I think I sell. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what General Motors or any other OEM, where they think I sell. My customers will tell me where I sell.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Right. So they tell me where I sell. So, that zip code, that's where that zip code comes in. That's going to set your PMA. So use your DMS data, where you sell cars, where you sell service, where you sell parts. Doesn't matter what you sell. Use the zip code to figure out where 80% of those customers come from, and that is your PMA. That's where you're marketing. That's the where we're going to own first. I don't need to own anything outside of this till I own this first.
Correct.
It's so silly that that we do these things.
Right? Dave Smith Motors out in Idaho. One could say that he blew that whole paradigm out of the water.
Yeah.
When he went
straight online.
He first did it on satellite radio. That's where he first did it. Right.
Okay.
And I
did not know that.
Yeah, it wasn't online. It was satellite radio.
Okay.
And he bought satellite radio, and messaging was, hey, buy from Dave Smith, fly out to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We'll put you in a great vacation for the weekend, and you can drive your car home, truck home. That's what they did. And so they disrupted that PMA by utilizing satellite radio, which is what we talk about, reach and frequency.
Right.
That's how he did it.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't targeting or quality in that, but there was so much quantity, so much reach.
And he was the only one doing it.
Right.
So he found a niche to exploit. Right. The only 100%. Guy that was saying this stuff. Yeah. So, it's good to know the history of how this stuff works, right? Mm-hmm. But that didn't mean that everybody could do that, right? No. It meant that Dave Smith could, and he did it well, and he still does.
Yeah.
But he owned the PMA of wherever that satellite radio was being, where people could pick it up. However they were doing it, General Motors, however they were getting it, that was the audience, and he was the only guy there.
Yeah. I mean, so when you look at your PMA, your customers will tell you where they're willing to come from to buy a vehicle, buy parts, do service with you. It'll tell you your service traffic patterns and people's work traffic patterns, etc. So you're going to use that. So that's tactic number 2 in this deal. Go street and this, and then use your DMS data. Figure out where 80% of your customers come from. That's your PMA. Okay. To circle back to the whole CDP and what's it supposed to be. It is the source of truth for all of your data. And so once you get it, make sure that this tactic is important to me, is whoever you use for that CDP, they must acknowledge, and they give you a document. You don't need to sign it. They need to sign it, that it's your data and that you can get it wherever you want to. Preferably, I would ask them, can I back that data up to my own storage and store it where I want it, so that I can get to it anytime I want to? That'd be the best case scenario. But second best, make sure you can get it. And then anyone who wants access to it, have your own data licensing and sharing agreement. We'll put it in the show notes, a link to the show notes for data licensing and sharing agreement. We have a template. You can use that, give it to your attorney. please give it to your attorney and have him, do what he needs to do, put the final touches on it. But have your own data sharing and licensing agreement. And when you turn off, make sure they understand when you cut off the CDP, they should be able to access that CDP through their own API key, have to agree to your data licensing agreement before they get that data license or for that they get that API key. And then that's where their data comes from to run your store, the things you need their tech to do, right? And then when you turn it off, it's off, and you cut, and any data you have from me needs to go away. That's the way this has to work. Otherwise, it's not that people can't. I'm sure they can. They will get the data somewhere else. I can imagine Apple having the same conversation when they turned off cookies and they turned off first party data or data out of their app or out of the App Store, right? Is that, well, we're not really doing anything. They'll get the good data somewhere else. They probably will. But Tim Cook said, you know what? They can get the data somewhere else. Here's where they're not going to get it from
us. Right.
Right.
Period. That is the gold, right? Everybody says, what's the new gold, new oil? It's data. Right?
Yeah.
And so really you have to look at it like you're now the new DMS of your data, right?
Right.
And they all have license agreements with you guys. You got to reverse it back out because what you have is valuable because those people in however big that is buy stuff.
Yes.
They buy stuff. They buy stuff really from you occasionally, from everybody else many times, right?
Right.
And that's what I've seen in this business today is in-market shoppers. Where do they get that? They get it from a pixel on a website, your website. And even when they're not using their services anymore, you didn't get that pixel off. So they're mining your
data.
Your data.
Right. I mean, I take this back to the third party leads back in the early 2000s. Nobody wanted to say these guys were selling the leads to one another, but we all knew it. Yeah. Nobody wants to say they're selling your in-market data to everybody else, but we all know it. Just call it what it is.
We may know it, but dealers may not.
I think
because they should care if they did know it.
I would hope we'd do something about it. And it's like one of those things where you go, I know it's happening. I just don't want to. What do I do about it? Right? I don't have a CDP, so what do I do? Do I stop taking everybody else's data because let them take mine? I mean, the first thing, it starts with, what's going to happen is you get the vendors saying, well, if I don't put this pixel under there, I can't do this. I can't do that. I have to have attribution. I can have this. Come on, man. No, I don't really need your attribution. To be quite honest with you, the biggest fallacy in the world is attribution. You want to know what attribution I want? When did you engage with me? Did I call you and connect with you and have a conversation? Did you show up? Did you make an appointment, or did you show up at my store? And did you buy something? That's the attribution I'm interested in. The rest of the attribution's nuts.
Was a term that I started using back in 2013, 2012, but not to get credit. It was never about credit. It was about what worked.
Right.
Because we handled all the advertising.
Sure.
So whatever credit or attribution or whatever, it came down to, did the money we spend help the dealer sell more cars and more cars than the month prior? So attribution is a term that's used or can be used the right way. If someone is doing all of your advertising, then they can make decisions. But if they're not, then it's a credit game, and then you're going to get bamboozled.
Yeah.
So attribution is a bad term unless you got one guy handling all your stuff.
But
then
you can get attribution.
You
can get attribution out of Google Analytics. You can put the tags where you need.
Yeah, you can put tags on it.
Right. You can get the digital attribution, which is what these guys want.
But they're not getting their name.
Yeah. I mean, they're not getting their customer's name, but you're at least you're seeing the pattern, right? Which is all that these guys want anyway. But what these guys want is not just the pattern. They want to be able to reverse back into the session, turn it into a de-anonymized customer, and make it turn that into a real name, email address, and mobile number.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Correct.
That's what's happening with 90% of these pixels that they're sticking on. They're not tracking the attribution the way you think of it. This guy went here. This session went here. Session.
Yeah,
no. They're tracking the customer.
Correct.
Right. 100%.
And I believe in it. I believe in this to de-anonymize names.
Absolutely.
100%.
I believe in it for you, for the dealer.
Right. Correct.
This is your list.
Amazon. One of their resellers, they have like 6 different ones that you can get in their deal with.
Yeah.
And these guys were trying to get us to put their pixel onto the dealer's website. And I said, we're not going to do that. for attribution. Last I knew, Amazon has like 230 million people that are paying customers that they have the credit card for. Well, that's damn near everybody in the United States. So in theory, they can say everybody is their customer. That was your customer, right? But they're not doing it for that. They're doing it to
they're looking for the behavior data.
Yes, and identify those people that you paid to get to your website and do more with it because they are.
And they're going to resell it. Every one of these guys, whether they want to believe it or not, whether they tell you they are or not, I don't care. They are reselling. They are.
And they're better data guys than you'll ever
that.
be because that's their job. That's what they do. That's all they do.
They're not going to like somebody saying it, but that's what's happening. And so, realistically, this should come from your CDP. And your pixel should be the only pixel running on that website. Yep. And it's going to get that list is going to my CDP, and then the person who's managing my CDP has given me a data sharing agreement that says they will not use it for any other purposes than my dealership. And anyone who accesses that CDP is agreed to my data sharing, my data licensing and sharing agreement, saying they won't do anything with it but for my store. And when we're done, we're done. And that way we don't have to worry about how many pixels are running on my store. I've seen stores with 15, 20 pixels running on them. And I guarantee you the dealer
doesn't know it.
They don't know it. Hell no.
We were at NADA and we asked that friend of yours, hey, Tony, how many pixels you got running on your website? What do you mean? Well, if you ever had one, I bet they didn't take it off.
Well, here's what's funny, because I went and ran Ghostery on his site.
How many you have?
He only had like 9 running on his, only 9, right? But one of them I pointed out directly was Adobe's Pixel, who has an entire marketplace where they resell the customer data. Yeah. It's the seedy little business that all these guys engage in, where they sell and resell and sell your data. And it's your data. When you pay to get somebody to that website, it is your data. Now, it might exist in other databases with other places and other people. Okay, fine. I don't care.
It does.
It does. I'm sure it does. But this data that we collected from your website is yours.
Yep. You paid for it.
You paid for it. 100%. So get Ghostery. Get all pixels off your website other than your pixel. And if anybody needs de-anonymized customer data, they can get it. And if you want to track attribution, there are a number of people in the auto business who can set up Google Analytics for you to track all online attribution. I don't need a pixel for that.
No, and it's just going to track if someone engaged in your ad, but you don't know who they are. 100%. So what good's that? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. There are things. Strategies, good strategies are good strategies, bad ones are bad ones.
Right. At the end of the day. And any time it's taking anything you paid for and reselling it for their benefit or for the profit of that particular vendor, buyer, provider, whatever, that's a bad strategy.
It's because really today, I was talking to RAs the other day and was talking to a customer the other day. I said, you know what? We shouldn't be doing anything advertising-wise for you or for any of the stores we work with that doesn't start with a list. Because I can mail that list, I can email that list, I can ingest that list into a DSP, I can target those folks with video messaging, everything. Yeah.
Everything runs
Everything runs off a list. And so I got a list, let's say 5,000 for simple math, you get a 2% response. That's 100 folks. What did you do with the other 4,900?
Yeah, 4,909.
Right? They should go in the.
They got to keep going.
Right.
We got to keep talking to them.
Keep talking to them and use it as a tool and segment. Now it can get organization and segmentation become very important when you're dealing with all this first party data.
Sure.
And to your point, the CDP can organize that for you and do with it with AI the things that a salesperson would normally do to help build
BDC. Yeah, I mean for sure. Yeah, I mean that's great. We would roll right into segmentation. So fourth tactic here: segment your data. It's important.
And it's difficult to do too. I mean,
it's not easy.
No,
but you want to get data segmentation. Talk to your customers, not at them. Right? And we've identified over 55 different segments. I'm going to just go into like the sales segments real quick. There's the easy one. Leases due 8 months prior to termination of lease. That's a segment. Everybody who's 8 months prior to termination. And, you know, I'm aggressive when I talk about these lists. I hate the you-dids.
So let me tell you the example here. Yeah. I've got a lease vehicle, right? Yep. And my lease is up in this coming November. And so but I've got a lot of miles because that's what we do. We drive. So I was looking at KBB to see what the value of my car currently is. And then I went and looked at my residual, right? Mm-hmm. And my car is worth more than my residual right now.
Yeah.
Right. So I could go and buy a new one. They could bring me up, and they should, but they haven't, but they should.
Right. I mean, they should. But I mean, I always hate to get the you-dids. I would rather get to you early than late. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the you-dids are basically when every salesperson's done it, every manager's done it. You've called the customer up. You've tried to talk to them about buying a car. Hey, I'm just calling to follow up on you're on our sales floor, whatever, the other day, and the customer goes, man, I wish you would have called me, 3 days ago. I bought one 3 days ago, and you go, you did? That's the you-dids. Don't get the you-dids. Get out of the you-did business.
But the you-dids work their way up to ad guys, too.
Yeah.
You did just buy a direct mail campaign from somebody else?
You did? Oh, yeah.
So it works.
Follow up. Yeah.
Follow
up.
There's that upward again.
You know, so there's leases due, purchases due, people that have bought the car. You know, look, if you don't know whether with their payments or if they're in equity, if you're waiting, let me just go add another tactic in here. Get out of this whole equity mining thing. It's nonsense. 70% of the vehicles people you talk to are in negative equity. If you're waiting for equity, you're too late. Yep. Just get out of the equity mining business altogether. It was a novelty somebody used to sell a program.
Right,
it's
absolutely.
Not real. Okay, real people don't trade with negative equity. Most of them.
Right.
Okay, so start talking to the customer when they've owned it long enough to want to trade it.
Which is usually about 2 years.
2.5 years, 3 years, right? They may have negative equity. Okay, so does everybody else you're talking to.
And that's why you should be in leasing. I remember the days when
half a car.
Yeah, 40% of Ford's data dealer or DMS was leases off leases. 40% penetration. Those days
we're going to have to get back in the leasing business to shore up the used cars. You're just going to have to. And realistically, for affordability, for a whole lot of reasons you're going to have to get back in the leasing business.
Because leasing is really the subscription business.
Yeah. Yeah, they've renamed leasing to subscription. But you think about it, subscription.
That's true.
It's in a lot of ways. I mean, with a leasing deal, you own the car, or the bank owns the car, right?
Yeah,
and there's a residual value. You know, with the subscription business, and I like the idea of the subscription business. I don't think it's working out the way anybody wants it to.
No,
I love the idea.
It's not. It's the people that were best at the subscription business were the newspaper people.
Oh, wow!
Right. And those are the guys that did a number on everybody on the subscription, and they want to continue to do that. But really, the subscription is a lease, because I'm going to have 36 payments, and then they're done, right? Then my subscription's up.
Right.
Don't confuse yourself with acronyms or new jargon or trying to replace a new word with an old word with a new word to describe a different.
Well, Porsche has an interesting subscription deal where you can trade out the car. I mean, you could just go back into the Porsche dealership and pick up another one.
Yeah,
that's
like
cool.
Getting out of your lease early.
Yeah, I mean, only this can happen every other month. I mean,
it could, but you're right. But they know the math, right?
Yeah,
they know their math,
right?
And that's what it is a math problem.
Yeah.
So continue.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, the fact of the matter is there's purchases due, and don't get caught up with equity binding. Look at how long they've owned the vehicle. Start talking to them. Open up a conversation. 2.5, 3 years into this deal, purchases due is one of those places you definitely want to be involved in. Purchase term completed. People that own 100% of the car. This is, both of these sections are, everybody's all eat up with acquisition. Mm-hmm. This is acquisition.
Right.
This is used vehicle acquisition, trade-in acquisition. The best the best conversations I've ever had with customers through AIM data from the best campaigns we ever did was talking about buying your old car and give you another one.
So
upgrade.
I had service on my vehicle, and it was down there. Matter of fact, I pick it up this afternoon. But it was a service maintenance, right? And the guy's like, you need this, and your tread on your tires weak. And I'm like, okay, can I have him just balance? Will that do it? Okay, give me the cheapest tires there are because I'm on a lease and it's almost up.
It's almost right.
And so I'm thinking to myself, gee, think if they would have known. I mean, they should know it. I got it in their vehicle, right? And if they're taught, then
why buy those tires? Why even buy the cheap tires? Just let me get you out of it, and I'll put you in another one.
And that's understanding the relationship that you have.
CDP.
There you go.
That's the relationship with the car, right?
Yep.
Your lease is 8 months prior to 2.5 years into the payment.
Yep.
If the purchase term completed, I should be talking about buying your vehicle damn near every month.
And they probably could have gotten me into a new car yesterday because I was in the mood for it because I'm like, shit, I got to put new rubber on this rig and I'm only going to have it for blah, blah, blah. They could have dehorsed me. There's an old word we used to use, right? And put me in a new ride.
Right. Yeah. Purchase term complete, existing service customers who did not buy. Number one category, hands down. 50% of the people on your service drive never bought a car from you. Promise you. I've never seen that segment be less than that. Never seen it.
And I just find that
amazing.
But then also what you could do with that knowledge, right? Right. If you go back and look at then your service drive and all your customers there, and match it up against your DMS, you could create offers out of that, right?
You should create offers out of that. Right. I mean, you should engage them on the drive. You should be have a whole program with your service writers on helping you sell more cars off of your drive. You should we've gone through this. I've seen Brian Benstock give this presentation. He had guys that worked the drive. I 100% would tell you there's more money on the drive than any $100,000 worth of advertising will ever buy you.
Or you send out an email blast or a direct mail piece and you say, Mr. Customer, we know that you didn't buy your car from us. And we know there was a reason for that. But we do appreciate you bringing your vehicle to have a service. And we want the opportunity to sell you a new vehicle or a slightly used one. Or one that you haven't had before. Right?
You've got a vehicle that we sell a lot of. I will give you top dollar for that vehicle or over MSRP for that vehicle. There's a thousand ways to look at that, 1,000 types of offers to get there. But that segment alone drives more business for more dealers. Why you're not leveraging that is the only reason is because you don't have a CDP and you don't know who they are.
And I would say that most operators come from the sales side as opposed to the service side.
Yeah. And then
you look at Fred Beans.
Right.
Yeah. Fred Beans, he's a different operator.
Yeah.
He's a good one of the best.
One of the
right?
best.
And he came from the service side. Right. And he understands the relationship.
Right.
And every third, he gets it. I mean, I don't mean to be, of course he does. He's iconic. But he worked it and he works. Yeah. He works it, still works it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're waiting for all these people on the service drive to go online to buy a car, you're going to be too late.
Way too late.
You're too late.
Too late.
This notion that we have to wait is silly. So existing service customers who did not buy from the dealership. In-market customers are opportunities. And I don't mean in-market because they were online. They raised their hand, sent information to my store, sent a lead to my store, called my store, wanted to buy something, but didn't. Continue the follow-up. And continue the follow-up until you know they bought someplace else. Why are we stopping? Why are we stopping? Why?
Technology has made all of us dependent upon technology. And, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't really move unless the technology tells us to, or we assume the technology is going to do it.
Yep.
It ain't. I mean, technology is made and programmed by people, right? That's what I guess the most common denominator can bring any of this thing down to. All this is how do you talk to people?
Right. So segment your data. Here, we've given you some sample segments. Leases due, purchases due, purchase term completed, existing service customers who did not buy from your dealership. potential customers or hand raisers in your store in your store that haven't bought yet. Those segments right there, and there are literally 50 others. Those segments are what I've heard them called micro audiences or micro whatever. But I mean, they can't be targeted online. You can't send 1,000 email addresses up and expect it. They won't do it. Most places won't take less than 2,000 email addresses. Period. Or DSPs won't take less than 2,000. But realistically, I don't want to talk at you. If I am throwing a banner ad up at you online, I'm talking at you. I want to talk to you.
Correct.
And the only way I can talk to you is have a direct one-to-one conversation.
And do a test. This be simple. Go to your service drive. Find out in your DMS your DMS or your service DMS how many people didn't buy a car from you.
Right.
And take that, whatever that number is, and say, I'm going to take 1,000.
Right.
We're going to do this test, and we're going to talk to these folks, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And know what your close ratio is.
Right.
That is the car business.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so that gets back to the frequency. Frequency, right? Just because when you engage, be it email, direct mail, whatever it is, when you engage that at least that existing service customers who did not buy segment, and it's something like 30,000 records, and 100 of them buy. There are still 29,900 people that didn't, that are going to buy something somewhere. Why would we stop?
You wouldn't.
Yeah, that's silly.
You would not.
No, you wouldn't.
One of our customers down in Texas, we've de-anonymized over 134,000 names.
Right.
134,000 names.
Right.
He sells a couple hundred, bumps up to 300 a month occasionally. In theory, he's got all the people he'll ever need.
Yeah.
If he talks to them every month. Right. And
we'll talk about a little bit how you can get that done. But yeah,
and you can today. You can get that done.
Yes.
And so if you de-anonymize them and they were on your site and we're buying into these triggers of in-market people, you have to reach out to those people again.
All the time.
You have to. Otherwise, you're breaking every law that you have as a dealer on follow-up and how we sell things.
Right.
So if you've got de-anonymization, you have to take those people and you have to talk to them every month forever.
I mean, you should be talking to your entire list every month forever, right? I mean, we have this old saying in the car business. It was crazy, but it worked. Buy or die.
Right. Right.
I was following up till you buy or die. I was taught to follow up with my customers till I buy or die, till they bought or they died.
Yeah.
And I did that, and you know what? It worked. And I used a 3x5 card system. Right. I didn't even have a CRM.
Exactly. And that's what the guy the article I read that did like 50 units a month, and he had his assistant that did all of those things, meaning staying in contact with the consumer, understanding his tendencies, knowing what he likes, dislikes. And they put it in a little database, and he works it. And that's really, it's so simple, and it's gotten complicated, it seems, because these guys, dealers and GMs, they get hit with so much shit all the time.
Oh, God.
All the time.
I can only imagine how bad it is today. Horrible.
And everybody else sucks, and no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they don't
and you're going, my brain's hurting.
So
let's talk about that. That's good. You can't manage what you can't measure, right?
Correct.
And you got to measure these things. So what are the KPIs? When you're talking to a potential provider or vendor or partner, whatever they want to call them, and we'll get into the partner things probably a little bit later in another show. But when you're talking to them, what are the KPIs that matter?
So I believe the KPIs for a dealer GM that should matter are, one, what was my budget for whatever action I'm spending on, right?
Yeah.
How many opportunities did that money provide?
Right.
What was the close ratio? How many did I close? Sell.
Yeah.
What was my gross profit on those that I sold?
Right.
And then add that number up, divide it by your budget. There's your ROI. To me, everything in the middle is the stuff for your other people to figure out. But if you can't know those 5, then you need to. You really need to, because everything's based off of ratios. Your close ratio, your ROI ratio,
right?
It's money made.
I think we're on the same page of that one. I wrote down audience, which is basically who did we target, right?
Yep.
Then then it was who engaged when we targeted them. However we targeted them, whatever channel we used to get there.
Yep.
Right. Who engaged with that channel? All right.
Correct.
And then finally, when we did engage, did we make an appointment? Did they call? Did they send them a lead? How did they engage? Because I want to get down to, I want all these engagements in one spot.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then finally, if we did make an appointment, how many of them showed up here? And if we did make an appointment, how many of them showed up here? Because how many ups do I have
in order to sell a car?
Yes. And then finally, how many of them bought?
And
I think anything outside of that, just to finish that off, anything outside of that is just minutia. How many clicks and impressions and your impression share and all this nonsense. We just got a deluge of just nonsense that took our eye off that ball. And so, fifth tactic, stay on the metrics that matter. Metrics that matter are your audience, your engagement, how many show and how many buy.
Here's another metric inside that formula that you're talking about that I think is really important, that probably blows up a lot of ad strategies, is the first contact may be really damn expensive. And you say, shit, I can't do that. But if you follow it all the way down the line, you'll see that the conversion of that very expensive first contact proves to be greater than a quantity of cheap engagements that didn't convert.
Right.
So what are you going with that? So
the audience, I think the audience is I would not put my ROI on what the audience costs me.
No, I wouldn't either. That's what I mean. Right.
Yeah, right. Because I'm gonna work this audience all the way down. Right.
Exactly.
So what the audience costs me isn't as important, because the audience is something I'm keeping forever. It's like your land. They say, is your location is that important? Is that a part of your ROI? You bet your ass it is. Do you measure that first month that you're there? Absolutely not.
And what is the main metric that digital providers will sell you is a cost per click?
Oh, God, yeah. And it's expensive.
Yeah.
At $6, according to Google, $6.46 per click. I'm out.
Yeah. You would never pay anybody $6 to walk by your lot every day on the sidewalk and give them $6. Give them $6.
No, it's nonsense. We've gotten I put this in some LinkedIn post, and David Kane, shout out to David, one of the nicest people in the car business for sure. He answered back, and with what I expected to hear, and that's that we did not lower our budget with digital marketing. We did not create a better experience with digital marketing. We did not do any better targeting with digital marketing. We exchanged our radio, TV, and newspaper budget for online marketing. All we did was move the money from the radio, the TV, and the newspaper over to Google.
Yeah. And did you sell more cars?
Yeah. And we didn't sell any more cars.
No.
That's what happened.
Right.
Yeah, we just transitioned it because Google said everybody's here. And I don't disagree. I think they are there.
So here's the other piece of that puzzle that I believe is a big contributor to that shift.
More.
Commissions.
Yeah.
So in the old traditional media, you started negotiating at 15%. Right.
Yeah.
That was it. Well, when digital came on, automatically you're getting 25 points. So what are you going to do? You're going to tell the customer this is where the action is, and you just gave yourself
a 10% raise, a 10-point right, yeah,
overnight,
right,
and they bought into it.
Yeah, sure they did, because that's where the customers are, right?
Yep.
And then were they?
For some, yeah, for when it was new and a novel, and it's still there too. But how many people are filling out forms on your website? Less than 2%. Okay. Well, how many are making phone calls? I don't know what your phone count is, but that's what I'd measure. I'd want to measure how many phone calls I get a month.
I mean, a lead from a web form is usually 60 days away from purchasing. A call is 7 days.
There you go, right?
Yes.
And I would have some sort of measurement that I can listen to those phone calls.
Sure.
Right? So I can then manage.
I would have a measurement. You don't want to just listen to the phone calls, because we got into this whole call tracking thing, and that was great for a while. But right now, if your system, if whatever you're using doesn't digitally bring the phone call into your sales process automation platform, I call it, some people call it a CRM. I think CRM's dead. If it's not bringing it digitally in and requiring your salesperson to disposition and follow up, you need to get a new system.
Correct. But I also think that it should be looked at as a teaching tool too. How do your salespeople handle the call?
Oh,
how long?
Yeah, somebody else is going to have to do that. I can't do that.
You know,
I'll kill somebody. I mean, I'll just literally be dead. but
you got to do it,
God
because
love 'em.
that is the large.
Somebody's got to do it. Yeah,
you have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah,
and it just seems so simple, but you need to do it. You just have to do it.
Well, it's funny that you say you have to do it, and then
you don't have to. But
no, you do have to do it. I mean, but who's supposed to do that?
The sales manager.
Sales manager, 100%. But the sales manager is not a sales manager anymore. He's a desk
guy.
Yeah. So, but we'll get into it. That's again another show. And with this show, we just need to wrap up right now. But I hope, again, to reiterate, to go back through this, through the talking, or the things we hope you take away from this, is that number one, get a CDP, a customer list, a database. It's not your CRM. It's not your DMS. Unfortunately, it is what it is, but that's what it's not. Get a CDP, get that list, control that data. It's yours. Make sure that every vendor you have, every person who needs access to that data is accessing it from one place. And that when they do get that access from that one place, that they are agreeing to your data licensing agreement. And where whoever is managing it for you, they've given you a data sharing agreement. And then make sure that you get Ghostery, get a pixel tracking.
Yes.
So check the pixels on your website. Anything you don't recognize, anything that anybody can't justify, to get it off your site. And then, when you do segment that list, talk to your customers, not at your customers. Segment that list, get down to that area, to that area. And then finally, the KPIs that matter. What audience you're targeting, how many of them engage, calls, leads, floor ups, right? Floor ups,
and closes,
yeah. Then who engaged, how many of them showed up, floor ups, and then how many of them buy. Those are the metrics that matter. All the other metrics do not matter.
Yeah, and don't ever forget the 5 steps to the sale. I think they're so essential. The meet and greet, counsel qualify, the demo ride, the TO if needed, which you should, the box to close, right?
Yeah.
That is a system that is a true north system. And if you adhere to it and work it, you'll do better, I believe. 100%. Everyone I've ever talked to did.
All right. With that, guys, thanks for listening, watching, whatever you're doing. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.